telemedical control of medical nanobots and bio interfaces. Our first speaker in this session will be Nader Najafi, who received his MS and PhD degrees in electrical engineering from the University of Michigan, while performing research on integrated micro-machined gas sensors and next-generation smart sensing systems. After graduation, Dr. Najafi worked for IBM before co-founding the company Integrated Sensing Systems Incorporated, and has since been its president and CEO. Please, Dr. Najafi.
Yes. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. It's my pleasure to be here. I had my first technical talk paper exactly 20 years ago, 1998, in Hilton Head Island Sensor Actuator Workshop. But this conference has four things that are absolutely new and unique for me, even over the last 20 years. Number one is that I've never been introduced by a scientist whose work have saved more than 100 million people. It's a great honor, Dr. Bloomberg. The second one is that the keynote speaker, Dr. Robert Borge, did such a fantastic job saying why what I want to do, what we are doing, is such an interesting thing and why is it necessary to do. So I want to thank Dr. Borge personally. And and the third one, which I think for me is absolutely unique, is that if I went to any other conference in the last 20 years and I showed my device, which is this one, and I said that this is an implantable device that's wireless, batteryless, lasts more than 30 years. You can have 500 samples of pressure sensor per second and is more accurate than a $2,000 industrial pressure sensor. I think this is the only conference the majority of people would say, wow, that device is so huge. And I think the fourth and last one that's very different is that I think this is the only conference that I'm going to have the most boring paper because of the talks that have been before me. And I was talking to Dr. James Prescott, the next speaker, that he said, you know, the time has passed because a few years ago our paper would be the sexiest one, and today is probably the most boring one. My name is Nader Najafi, and my company is Integrated Sensing Systems. And I'll introduce our device to you next. I thought that I'd first start by introducing ISIS to you. I used to work for IBM, left there in 1994, and I started ISIS in January of 1995, which makes Integrated Sensing System actually one of the oldest independent MEMS companies in the United States. And I think particularly after the bubble burst of IT in early 2000, about 35 companies in the US went bankrupt. Fortunately, we survived. And as you can say from the name of the company, which is Integrated Sensing System, it has nothing about MEMS or nano. I firmly believe that there is no money to be made in MEMS. There is a tremendous amount of money to be made in MEMS inside. So we are highly focused on the integrated sensing system rather than a device or a chip. We are a highly vertically integrated company. Not only we make and fabricate our own MEMS device, we do the entire readout electronics, versus ASIC, analog, digital, PC boards. We do the entire assembly, hermetic sealing, software calibration. I have our own VP of Regulatory Affairs to help us to go to the FDA approval. Also, we are one of the very few companies in the US that has a full MEMS and bio-MEMS manufacturing facility with a great emphasis on high-quality manufacturing. To the best of my knowledge, we are the only MEMS company in the US that's qualified both for ISO 9001, 2000, which is industrial quality manufacturing, and also is qualified for ISO 13485-2003, which is both FDA manufacturing compliant for device class 3, and also European Union Medical Device Directive. Also, we are offering MEMS services longer than any existing MEMS company, mostly for very high quality, high demanding applications such as aerospace, military, and medical field. We're not into very high volume production for automotive industry that requires 50 to 100 million units. Our facility can handle up to about 1 million units of devices per year. For our advanced drug delivery devices, we have received our first 510K approval from FDA, and to the best of my knowledge, this is the first device in the United States that the silicon microstructure is directly in contact with the body, and we have an FDA approval for it. So it's a fantastic predicate device for people that want to do that. We have two core technologies. The second one that I will not talk about anymore, any longer here, is our microtube resonating device, and that provides a highly comprehensive analysis of any fluidic that you have, either gas or liquid. We can measure the mass flow directly with Coriolis flow measurement, which is the only technology, Coriolis flow, that directly measures mass flow. Concentration, density, viscosity, and temperature were really unprecedented advantages that you may have in functionality and performance. The markets that we have there right now, we are making fuel cell sensors for concentration of methanol and other liquid fuel cells. We've been selling those over the last 3.5 years, mostly to Japanese, because those are pioneers in this field at this time. Also, we have some industrial sensors. And again, with industrial sensors, the funny thing was when we made it very small and we tried to sell it, their environment didn't accept it. You know, they said, "What? You want how much money for this small thing?" And it was, quote unquote, it was not manly for them. So we put them in a bigger stainless steel and charged them much more money, and then they bought them. Also, with the same technology, we have developed advanced drug delivery products. That one is on hold because I'm in Round C, preferred Round C financing, and when I get the money from that Round C, we resume the product. That's the one that we received FDA approval. But that's different than the nanotechnology that you talked about it today. It's really a disposable part that you throw away. Just to give you some statistics, is 2.5 times more likely than an American gets seriously hurt in a hospital because of wrong drug delivery than it is for that person to get hurt with an automotive accident. On average, there is 1 drug delivery error per patient per day in a hospital. 1 drug delivery error per day per person in the hospital, and the cost is over $80 to $100 billion. Some studies says $130 billion. And the number one, 50% of the fatal errors are due to injectable devices, liquid devices. And there, the number 3 errors is dosage, wrong drug, and blockage of the drug flow. And our devices can detect all 3 of them very easily. The talk that I have today is mostly talking about our platform for wireless, batteryless, implantable pressure sensors. And there's a tremendous market potential in many emerging fields. The idea in general is that we believe that by being able to remotely and easily monitor different sensing parameters within the body, we can tremendously improve dynamic and tailored treatment of many diseases. This would really move what is absolutely necessary, as well as a cost, to move the healthcare more and more towards home monitoring. And the system consists of 2 parts. One part is an implantable device that's very small, wireless and batteryless, and the other part consists of small handheld readout electronics. What you see here is actually our old generation box, which is the size of a Kleenex box, and very small antenna, which actually right now we merged the two antenna to a simple antenna. So one of the major medical companies currently working with us for the intracranial application. So what they really like to do is reduce the size of the box was 1/3. So it's already one of the smallest boxes you found, but you're getting pretty close to the ideas that you're talking about, PDAs and cell phones. But the device that we currently are working on, it would be 1/3 of this device. Both the telepowering and telecommunication is happening with RF telemetry. The market that we are focusing on, a lot of experts believe that congestive heart failure is the single largest emerging medical market in the world. I've been in conferences that's mostly VC-oriented for medical applications, that about 60% of the proposals, one way or another, relates to congestive heart failure, whether nanotechnology, software, or etc. But as Dr. Berger mentioned, if you don't die from stroke and heart attack and infectious diseases, and you're lucky, you will have congestive heart failure. The thing that I want to, and since our invited speaker did a great job there, I'm not going to spend that much time. There are a couple of things that I like to mention. One of them, two are morbidity and mortality. 1 out of 5 patients die within the first year. Half of the patients die within the first 5 years. And also, as important as that one, is quality of life. People who are able to jog and play tennis, suddenly they can barely walk. So the problem has both quality of life and length of life that you face. NIH has considered congestive heart failure the new epidemic in the US. Now, what we're trying to do is improve the patient outcome and lower cost of care, but our approach. Again, I'm not going to talk too much about what we're doing here, but the number one way that people treat congestive heart failure is through medication. But that medication needs to be changed as the patient ages and the disease changes. And if you give too little of the drug, the patient dies from congestive heart failure, and if you give too much, they die from pulmonary edema. So there is a fine line that you can walk there. Even tests like BNP are not specific to congestive heart failure. So basically what we like to do, give a tool to a doctor that can adopt this. What I like to emphasize here is, if you look at this, this is a penny, and this is our pressure sensor there. This is just pressure sensing element without any electronics. Our first generation devices, which we did in 1999, were similar to CardioMEMS and Remote Medical. They were rectangular. And in my 20 years in MEMS, I only have seen 2 circular MEMS devices. That's very different than your nano, that everything is sphere shaped. One of them was this one. The other one was somebody did in the 1970s. Why we went from, and this is a huge, huge technical task. It took us about 3.5 years to move from a flat structure to a circular structure. The reason is, when I look at our device, which back then was just what we call a dumb sensing element. It was a capacitive pressure sensor and a coil. It would not go where we wanted to go, and we would not cover all the applications that we wanted to cover. So by having a circular device, we are able to put that in front side of this glass tube, and now we have a cylindrical device. This pressure sensor is hermetically sealed from environment, and again, you can hermetically seal this from the rest of the system, so any outgassing in the system from your coil or from any other element will not cause a drift in your pressure sensor. When you're looking to put a pressure sensor within the body that you hope lasts more than 10 years, stability is extremely important. Another important thing here is that going from a device that has no electronics, as a result, no functionality, no intelligence, this device has an electronic chip there, and then you have plenty of freedom to put different elements within this capsule that you have. So in other words, we created a platform that not only can do things as far as measurement of pressure that nobody else in the world can do, but also is a platform for you to add other sensors. For example, by replacing the pressure sensing element, which is in the middle, I can have 2 leads And now I can hermetically attach this, change my electronics, and then you can have different types of sensors that you can attach to the same structure. This is a huge, important, and huge differentiation factor between what we do and what other people do. Specifically, why we want to have it there? Because we wanted to have the minimum amount of intrusion in any part of the body that we go through. And one of the key elements is that we wanted to have a sensor that not only can go to your pulmonary arteries, like, for example, CardioMEMS and Remote Medical do, but also we wanted to be able to go to both right side of the heart and left side of the heart. And we wanted to be able to open any organ and put our device in. When you put our device in, you only need less than 1 millimeter of protrusion inside that organ. If you're in the left side of the heart, thrombi is an important issue. Biocompatibility is a very important issue because if there is any problem, the patient will have stroke. If you're in the right side of the heart, it goes to the pulmonary artery. This gives us tremendous advantage in where we can go and what we can measure. And right now we have, I think we have awarded 21 patents, and we have another about 80 patents that covers different areas. So we do have some IP for pulmonary artery and right side of the heart, but our major focus at this time, and most of animal study that we do, is to monitor the left side of the heart. The left side of the heart is the holy grail of the treatment of congestive heart failure. Having access to pulmonary artery and right side of the heart is good. Having access to left heart side of the heart is everything. The left ventricular end-diastolic pressure, for example, is the single most important parameter that you can know the health of a patient. We have two approaches at this time that we're looking at the left side of the heart that we're actively pursuing. One of them is during an open chest surgery, which we planned our device. Very similar to what Transoma is doing. Transoma is another company that Dr. Borges didn't mention. They have a device that they put in open chest surgery. Transoma is a spin-off of Data Scientific, Instrument Scientific that mostly worked on animal studies, but is a pacemaker. So what we can do there, the device that I have here today, the second generation device we have, the diameter is French 9. This device is smaller than the head of Chronicle by Medtronic. And as a result, you can go many places very easily. One of the areas is on the side of the wall, either right or left side of the heart of the wall, with open chest surgery. The other one is catheter delivery and being planted transeptally on atrial septum. Again, if you look at the photo here, the most important thing that you can see is that we have minimum amount of protrusion here where the pressure sensor is, and the rest of the sensor is now placed in right side of the heart. Right side of the heart is much easier. And if you look at the same mechanism, which actually we're not using nitinol there, we're using plastic, and you reverse it, if this is side of the wall and you're doing an open chest surgery, you again have very minimal amount of intrusion, and the majority of this is outside the heart. So it provides the maximum benefit you have. Another major advantage of having your sensing element on the flat side and having cylindrical is I have the entire body of this device available for the design of variety of anchors. Having a sensor is one thing, delivering it is another thing, and the third element is how do you anchor, how do you stabilize it. By having access to the entire body, it makes our life much easier for our intracranial applications and also for our open chest applications. We had a huge group of people, from cardiologists to surgeons to people that are expert in catheters, and we came up with an ideal way to deliver a product that the doctors would use, and the hospital will buy, the insurance company pays for it. It has to be an outpatient procedure, catheter-based, similar to what cardiac procedures are used to. Ideally less than 14 French size of catheter delivery. The monitor pressure has to be as good or better than the current pressures without any new training. Has to be real time, very accurate, high fidelity, and having intelligence in our device compared to our competitors has a huge advantage. because you don't want to read the wrong information. You want to know the data is valid. And you want to be sure that interference that comes in from all of the other instruments in the field doesn't cause you. We have intelligence there that allows us to distinguish right data from wrong data. We also right now ask by our intracranial application medical partners to add ID information in our chip. So you don't, if the patient is unconscious or there is a mistake, you bring your antenna and it tells you what is the ID number and where you go. Those are some of the advantages that you have with having intelligence there. We're looking at 15 centimeter application of both telepowering and reading has to be robust according to requirement by FDA and FCC and easy to use. Here we're looking at a few of the samples, ISIS versus Millar, which Millar is a catheter that has a pressure sensor on the tip and is gold standard. And actually, if you can see, our sensor matches better than Millar with what we expected to see because the protrusion that our sensor has there is less. Millar has to be on a catheter to be there. This one, I think, was in left ventricular. This is another one that they intentionally, this is with the lumen field catheter, and then again, you see a lot of artifact from lumen field catheter that our sensor doesn't have. And then here, they intentionally injected some chemical to change the heartbeat, and you can see that our sensor follows that quite easily. Here, with basically a pacemaker, we change one heartbeat in order to see how fast is the sensor and whether the sensor and the reference match each other quite well or not. Here you're looking at, again, minimum protrusion within the wall. And you can see, I think this is after 78 days, there is no cell growth there. The material that we are using here is not silicon, is heavily boron-doped silicon. There are a lot of studies by MIT and University of Michigan that's shown for long-term application, silicon is not biocompatible. It gets attacked by the body. Boron-doped silicon is one of the most corrosion-resistant material you can find. So without using any other protection, although we can easily use Parylene here, and we have shown that our devices actually are working quite well with Parylene, they are extremely stable and biocompatible. Also, in one of our studies, we didn't push the sensor completely outside of the wall of the heart, so it was within the wall, and we had a great thick layer of cell growth. And even with the thick layer of cell growth, the sensor is working extremely well. And part of the reason is that we design our membrane intentionally to have a huge amount of tensile stress. And when you have huge amount of tensile stress, you can easily handle if there is any cell growth on top of the membrane without physically changing it. Also, our sensors uses one of our spin-off technologies called nanogetters, and that absorbs any outgassing that you have. So again, it provides for a fantastic stability over time. I don't claim I understand all of this. The thing that I know about our doctors is that all of our histology tests have been extremely outstanding from all of our animal studies that we have. The most important thing that I want to emphasize here is we don't just have a sensor, we have a platform. This platform allows us to design for different applications within the body, even change the pressure sensors if we have to in a very easy way. We spent about 3.5 years on coming up with a proprietary hermetic attachment technique that allows us now to encapsulate and isolate our electronics from other material that we can have. What are the other areas that we're going to go? And this is my last slide. We actually had last week an ophthalmologist coming to our office with 5 cow eyes, and we started putting our sensors for intraocular pressure measurement for research in glaucoma. Actually, that was one of the first projects that I got in 1999 from NIST ATP, but back then our sensors were too big, and right now, since the communication distance that they need is small, we're going to go there. We're also heavily working with intracranial pressure sensors. Some of our studies, animal studies, will start within the next couple of months. And obviously, orthopedic application has a huge market. As I mentioned, we are in our preferred Series C investment. One of the problems that I'm facing is that since we cover a broad range of applications, there is no one partner who can accumulate all of it. So I think within a few months, you'll see that ISIS as a whole company will be broken up into many different companies. And Series C is the last series that anybody can invest at ICES as a whole. And I foresee that for wireless devices, again, the application is so broad that we would have a cardiovascular, intracranial, and optical application as well as other application. Thank you very much.